everybody. It is Thursday, July 23rd, and today we're going to do some math. We're actually doing some pre-algebra, and you've probably seen some of this before. It's review from what you've probably done in 5th grade. It's a good thing to brush up on that over the summer. Let's look at our assignment. So today it says it's a math day. There's no reading warm-up. We're not going to read it all today, except the reading we do in math. Watching the math video, you're doing that now. There's some PEMDAS videos, which I sent you links to. PEMDAS is super important for this kind of work. And also there should be links at the bottom of this YouTube. So if you haven't watched them yet, please watch them. And you're going to complete Quick Check C and which is translating algebraic expressions from words to symbols. It's a mouthful. And then you're going to work on a multiplication coloring sheet. And make sure you send me your work when you're done. All right, so PEMDAS. What is PEMDAS? I hope you've heard of it before. It's some letters that stand for the order that we do our equations in, basically. P, can you see all that? The P in PEMDAS stands for parentheses. E stands for exponents. M stands for multiply. D stands for divide. A stands for addition. And S stands for subtraction. Now you'll notice over here it says order. Always work from left to right, just like you do when you're reading. But if the parentheses come later on, you still do them first, even if they're over on the right. Okay? So this is the order you always do things in. Parentheses, exponents. Exponents are these little numbers here, and there are not going to be any of those in our work today, so don't worry about it. But if you see an exponent, you do that before you do any of these other things. And an exponent is a little number that we use to multiply the term by itself. So if this variable, that's what letters are called, was replaced by a 2, that would mean you would multiply 2 by itself 3 times, would be 2 times 2 times 2. That's an exponent. So after you've done the parentheses, and if there's no parentheses, you move on to the next one. You do the exponents, and if there's no exponents, you move on to the next one. You multiply, and then you divide, and then you add, and you subtract. PEMDAS also stands for Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. That's a memory aid to help you remember the order of operations. All right, here's some examples. We got 3 plus 7 plus 6 divided by 3. That's a lot of numbers strung together with a lot of operations. Well, which one do you do first? You look at PEMDAS. First of all, there's no parentheses, so we can skip that. There's no exponents. Is there multiplying? Yes, there is. Where is it? Oh, it's in the middle here. So even though we're going left to right, if the multiplying comes later on in the equation, we do that first. So they multiplied 7 times 6 to get 42. They did that first because multiply comes before add, or divide for that matter. Then it looks like they did the division. 42 divided by 3 because division comes before addition in PEMDAS, which is 14. Then they added 3 plus 14 to get 7. If you did it left to right, if you added 3 plus 7 and then multiplied that by 6 and then divided by 3, you would get a whole different answer, and it would be wrong because you wouldn't be following PEMDAS. Here's another example. Ooh, this one's got parentheses. So you know you got to do that first because parentheses always get done first. So they did. 6 times 4 is 24. And then they wanted to do the division. So they did 24 divided by 3, which makes 8. Good. Then they wanted to do the addition. They did the subtraction first, actually, so I guess it doesn't matter that much. 8 minus 6 is 2, and then they added 2 plus 2 is 4. And this last one has exponents. Like I said, we're not doing that today, but you should know it for next time. So 2 to the second power means you're going to multiply 2 by itself twice. So it would be 2 times 2. So they did that. 2 times 2 is 4. And then they did the multiplication, 4 times 9, which is 36. And then they did the division, 36 divided by 3 is 12. So that's how PEMDAS works. I also gave you on the back of that paper, you have this paper with your stuff. So you should be getting that out and looking at it. This is a translation guide which has some of the words that you see to represent the operations, because it doesn't always say add. Sometimes they say it a different way. Don't worry about these two columns here. Just look at these two. These are the important ones. So addition, here's some addition words. Add, plus, some, more, increased, added. And you're going to see them this way in a sentence. Add x plus 5. That means you're adding. X plus 5. The sum of, oops, sorry about that. X plus 5, that's adding to. 5 more than x is adding. X increased by 5 is adding. X added to 5 added to x is adding. Different ways to say add. Same things with subtraction. You've got subtract, minus, less, decreased, subtracted, difference. And you're going to see them this way. I won't read them all, but 6 decreased by 4. That means you're subtracting. 4 subtracted from 6. The difference of 6 and 4 means you're subtracting. Multiplication has these words: multiply, times, product, that's an important one, twice, and doubled. You might see multiply x and 3. It means the same thing as 3 times x, or the product of x and 3. They all mean multiply. Divide, dividend, quotient, and per are words that mean division. You're not going to see per very much in this grade, but you will see quotient quite a bit. So divide x by 3, x divided by 3, those are different orders, by the way. Or the quotient of x plus and 3 means you're dividing. The quotient of x and 3, you're dividing x divided by 3. Now this, the quantity is another important word. When they say the quantity of x plus 3, that means you are taking these two terms together and doing what the operation says. The operation here says plus. The 4 times the sum of x and 3, 3 times the quantity of x minus 4, and 3 times the difference of x and 4. We'll talk about this again right now when we start our work, okay? Because that is a little confusing. Let me show you it a different way. That's a little easier to understand. So we already talked about this. Before you do these types of problems, you have to know the order of operations. We just learned that, so we can skip that part. But the second bullet point is important. Let me make it a little bigger. It says, when you use these phrases, go down there, Mrs. Hawkinson. When you use these phrases, sum of, quantity of, quotient of, or product of, when you see that of in there, they're telling you that you need to figure that out first. So we're going to be taking sentences like this, the sum of x and 6 times 4, and putting them into exponents. And if you see one of these phrases, the sum of, the quantity of, the quotient of, or the product of, that means that has to come first, has to get done first in the equation. The best way to make that happen is to put parentheses around it. Or sometimes you might just put it first in the sentence, but usually what we do is put parentheses around it. That automatically tells the person doing the problem that they have to do that first, because parentheses comes first in PEMDAS, right? So keep in mind when we do these, we're not solving the problems, we're just making equations, or number sentences, I should say, not equations. Okay, so if a problem says the sum of x and 6 times 4, there's that phrase, the sum of. Got the of in it. That tells me I have to put x and 6 in parentheses with the operation, and the operation is adding because it says sum. So it's going to look like this. The phrase the sum of tells us that we want to add x and 6 first. To make that happen, we have to put x and 6 in parentheses, since that comes first in PEMDAS. So it would look like this, x plus 6 in parentheses. Now, no matter where that is in the equation, you know you got to do it first. Next, we'll put in the times 4 part. If you put a number right next to parentheses, it means the same as multiply, believe it or not. So in other words, you could write 4 times x plus 6, but then you have 2 x's and it gets confusing. So the algebra way to do that is to just put the 4 right next to the parentheses. And there's an invisible times sign in there that you can't see. Now, here's the weird thing. When we put multiplication next to a parentheses like this, We always put the number before the parentheses that we're multiplying by. I don't know why, but that's what we do. And if the 4 is right next to the parentheses, that's like there's an invisible times sign in there, so you know you're going to times it. However, since there's parentheses over here, that means we're going to do this part first and then do the times. So this is what it looks like. The sum of x and 6 times 4. The sum of x plus 6 is here, times 4 is over here. All right, let's do some of these, and then you can have a turn. We just did this one, the sum of x and 6 times 4, so we'll skip that. Let's do the next one and think about it as we do it. Ooh, this one has one of those phrases for sure. I got a pen here? Yep. Okay, 7 more, then more is going to be adding, right? Then the product of 6 and x. There's one of those phrases, the product of 6 and x. So I need to do that first. Product means times. And I remember I said I don't think I said this yet. You don't have to put a time sign between a number and a variable either. There's an invisible time sign in there. Right in there, you can't see it, it's invisible. So that means 6 times x. All right? And then I want that to happen first, right? Because multiply comes before add. So I'm going to put 6x here and then 7 more then. I'm going to put the 7 over here plus 7. Multiplication is the only one where you don't have to put parentheses around it if you want it to come first. The other ones add, subtract, multiply, or divide, and those three have to have parentheses to show they come first. Let's try this one. 9 less than 4 times x. Okay, 9 less than 4 times x. I think we can do multiplication first because that comes first in PEMDAS, right? 4 x 9 less minus 9. Because multiplication comes before subtraction. All right, here's one with one of those of signs that tells us we should probably put parentheses around it. The quotient of x and 10. Quotient means divide. So I'm going to put that in parentheses first because of that of. Divided by 10. That means I'm going to do that first. Plus 2. Plus 2 is going on the outside there. The parentheses tell me I have to do that first before I go on. All right, how about 3 times the quantity of x plus 10? Plus is the adding word, and then you've got that quantity of thing, so you know that's got to go in parentheses. That of tells you that. Of, parentheses. So I'm going to put x plus 5, and because it's quantity of, I'm going to make sure that I do that first by putting parentheses. What about the times? 3 times. Yep, we usually put the times at the beginning, although it doesn't really matter. And then there's an invisible times sign there. We don't have to put the times. The product of 5 and x. Product is times, so I'm going to put 5x. And we don't have to put parentheses for multiplication, only for subtraction, addition, and division. Minus 9. All right, that's how you do those. Do the best you can. You're taking these little sentences and turning them into numerical symbols using numbers and the variable x. So do quick check C and take a picture of it and send it to me. And then you have got that coloring to do. Do the best you can. We'll see what you come up with. Alrighty, great. See you tomorrow for some more reading.